Hello. Well, Jeremy Corbyn says that Zionists have no sense of irony. Yeah, I'm not making that up. It's here on this video.
The other evening we had a meeting in Parliament in which Manuel made an incredibly powerful and passionate and effective speech. This was dutifully recorded by the thankfully silent Zionists who were in the audience on that occasion, and then came up and berated him afterwards for what he had said. They clearly have two problems. One is they don't want to study history, and secondly, having lived in this country for a very long time, probably all their lives, they don't understand English irony either. Manuel does understand English irony and uses it very, very effectively. So I think they needed two lessons, which we can perhaps help them with.
Now, as much as I know about Zionism, it's an opinion or an ideology connected to the Jewish claim to a homeland in that part of the world that is now called Israel. Okay, so far so good, but I wanted to make sure. And I consulted some dictionaries. I looked up Zionism in a few dictionaries and found more or less the same thing in all of them. Here are two. Chambers has it thus. Noun, the movement which worked for the establishment of a national homeland in Palestine for Jews and now supports the State of Israel. And Merriam-Webster says, an international movement originally for the establishment of a Jewish national or religious community in Palestine and later for the support of modern Israel. Well, seeing as I have no trouble with either of those definitions, I reckon that makes me a Zionist. After all, where would all those people go? So, having got the terms clear, I now return to Corbyn's assertion that Zionists have no sense of irony, even the ones who have been here a very long time. I noticed that he didn't seem to think that any of them had actually been born in this country. I don't suppose he could have been making the semi-literate assumption that a Zionist is, by definition, a foreigner, is he? Of course not. I wouldn't dream of such an indelicacy. However, he does seem to imply that when you take on Zionism, you completely lose any sense of English irony. You know, I did find this prospect very alarming because, as a YouTube creator, irony is one of the tools I'm supposed to use. I'm devastated that it may be that I've lost it. And since I've been a Zionist, ever since I saw those pictures of skeletons covered in skin being shoveled into mass graves when the Allied troops got into places like Bergen-Belsen, you know, I think I probably haven't had an appreciation for irony for years and years and years. However, I wanted to make sure of my terms, so I looked for a definition of irony and found the following. Irony is the expression of one's meaning by using language that normally signifies the opposite, typically for humorous or emphatic effect, as in, "Don't go overboard with the gratitude," he rejoined with heavy irony. So, a sense of irony is the ability to understand when somebody is saying one thing but means the precise opposite. And apparently anyone who's a Zionist is completely unable to come to grips with that. I wonder if Jeremy meant, though, that it was only Zionists that were so afflicted, or if they were just a subgroup of people who didn't have that very special Corbyn sense of humour. I wasn't sure, so I thought, while we were defining terms, I'd have to check out what Jeremy actually means when he talks about Zionists, because, you know, some people who are not that well disposed to him think that Jeremy was using that word Zionists as a substitute for the word Jews. Really? Surely not. It wouldn't make any sense anyway. There are many Arab citizens of Israel who prefer to stay living in Israel rather than being under the governance of any of the neighbouring countries, so that makes them Zionists, doesn't it? and they would hotly reject any suggestion that they were Jewish. On the other hand, there are many Jews who are not Zionists. So perhaps Corbyn was just being ironic? Frankly, I'm not sure now, because after Corbyn, who is obviously an intellectual giant, said that Zionists have no sense of irony, even the ones who've been living on these islands for a long time, I'm now unsure about my own grasp of this form of humour. I mean, if Corbyn meant Jews, then saying that Jews as a people have no sense of irony, surely that would be a teeny bit racist. You know, racism being a generalisation ascribing one or more predictable characteristics to every member of a particular race without exception. And if he meant Zionists in what we might term the orthodox definition, if you'll forgive the expression, that is, people who believe in the concept of a Jewish homeland, then that means that anyone would completely lose any sense of irony at a stroke and in a sort of bundle at the very moment that they adopted that opinion. Now, that would be a logical fallacy known as the sweeping generalisation, which any intelligent person, and even some politicians, know very well to avoid. It would be as bad as if I said something utterly ridiculous and obviously false, like, anyone in the top echelons of the Labour Party is a raving conspiracy theorist with anti-Semitic leanings who sees Zionists under the bed at any turn. Which, of course, would be terribly unfair, and not even a little bit ironic. In that video, by the way, Mr. Corbyn is sharing his platform with a chap called Stephen Sizer, who's written much accusing the Jews of perpetrating the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center, and posts links to Holocaust denier groups on his social media, and is of the opinion that Israel is responsible for the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. But then, well, perhaps he's being ironic. The other fellow at the same table is called Dr. Dawood Abdullah, who obviously understands irony much better than the Zionists, which might account for Corbyn getting on so well with him. Dr. Abdullah ironically called for Muslims to attack members of the British Armed Forces if the Royal Navy tried to stop Hamas smuggling weapons into Gaza, and ironically signed his name to a call for Muslims to oppose the crossings in Palestine. Muslims to open the crossings in Palestine so that money, clothing, food, medicine, weapons and other essentials can enter Gaza and Palestinians are able to perform the jihad. It's obvious that the whole conference was absolutely awash with irony. And you know what? I was unable to appreciate any of it. Maybe Corbyn was right. I'm very grateful for financial contributions, but if you don't want to give money, you can still help a lot by sharing this and other videos I've made. Also, remember to check your subscription from time to time, as sometimes subscriptions get erased for one reason or another. Till next time.